Hello, and thank you for joining us. This presentation is about hardware asset management in a new world, or the new normal of the work from home environment driven by the COVID pandemic. My name's Tom Watson. I'm the president and founder of AMI. We make the asset track solution that leading enterprises use to track hardware asset life cycles in their environment. We provide software solutions and process consulting, hardware and services related to companies managing their hardware asset inventories themselves. And with me today, I've invited Mike Loria, the president and founder of Resource Partners, service provider, in that he can provide some valuable insight into his experience as a hardware asset depot services provider for some of our shared companies and a whole bunch more. So thank you for joining us, Mike.
Sure. Thanks for having me.
Yep. All right. So, Mike, before COVID even hit, kind of tell me what's your experience with your customers? Again, before the pandemic hit, what were they dealing with in terms of managing hardware?
Well, I like to say that they come to us when they have chaos related to moving hardware assets around. And so sometimes that's delivering new hardware, that's storing new hardware and how they deploy stuff. And sometimes it's stuff that gets stuck on shelves or how they redeploy broken assets and those kinds of things. So our entire scope of services extends through the whole life cycle. And I said, they come to us when there's chaos. And another way to say that is not knowing what you have. That's generally, the biggest pre-existing condition that we see out there, and it just isn't always the top priority. But when you look at the number of distributed assets out there, there's a reason they don't know what they have, and that's because it's hard to track them. So we think of ourselves as experts in that. That's what we focus on. We look at all of the different ways to go about tracking or to simplify these things. And again, it's complicated because it's moving of a lot of assets and it's at unknown times. And we put in this last one here, stuff happens, and you can figure out what that means, because I'm sure that you've all had stuff happen to you in terms of managing IT assets, particularly from the physical nature of those. And those, I think, so there's a bit of I'll call it a perfect storm at the onset of coronavirus, just because there was nothing pushing this to the absolute top priority.
So that dovetails nicely. Now that we've added the pandemic, how has that exacerbated things, or how has that changed hardware asset management for your clients?
Yeah, I think, it's interesting. So what employees take home is the first question, or what did we do? We had customers that called us, as shutdown started, looking to buy 1,000 laptops, or trying to find out if, hey, that stuff that we had retired, did that already get disposed? We might want it back. Do we have any new stuff? What do we have what's available to deploy, that kind of thing. So there's a whole lot of chaos. I think, the companies that did it well and reacted, maybe they did some tracking of those assets and specifically where they were going. But then we took all these people that were in these buildings and moved them out of those buildings, and whatever's inside them is still in there. We've talked with customers now. We're organizing some projects that'll start up at the beginning of the year to go in and clean some of those out. I think the unfortunate thing is that there's a fair amount of assets probably clogged up in most workplace environments, and that's stuff that was new that hasn't been deployed, or it was retired. And one way or another, it's a risk. Either it's something that you bought and you're not able to use, or it's something that's just kind of hanging out. No one really knows where it is, and it's got data on it. So then we start to talk about, okay, well, should we return it, replace it, retire it? What other stuff is out there? We're kind of holding this conversation in the context of distributed assets, but there's still deeper levels of what's gotten confusing in servers and network and those areas. So pandemic didn't do anything good in terms of organizing, helping companies be more organized. It certainly took some of those that were more fragile by nature of the processes they had in place and really added a whole other layer of complexity.
Yeah. One thing I just want to add is, one of our clients was just trying to figure out what employees did take home. They also need to figure out what they need to replace so that they're prepared for the next pandemic, that the transition to working from home is now seen as something not permanent, but something that uh, needs to be readily available. Not only did things get taken home, that equipment needs to be duplicated or replaced so that the in-office environment can be set up. So now customers have that flexibility to work in both locations.
Yeah, I mean, that's a huge point too, because whether we feel it or admit it today, I was on an airplane a couple of weeks ago and had to empty my water bottle from 20 years of that's been sticking. So I think there's going to be aspects of this that just become commonplace, and some people are liking working from home. Some people are finding their savings on the real estate side, and there's going to be a push. I would say it's safe to assume that not everyone that went away is going to come back.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So what's happening now in terms of, this change, like what's changing now for what's the impact?
Yeah, right. Good question. I mean, no different than what we're all facing in many aspects of our businesses. Everything's a little more expensive, whether that's because of scheduling time for people, different shifts, trying to create the separation. So costs are going up on every process that every company does. The increased workload is interesting because how do we respond to an increased need for more work when we may not be able to have all of our people here? So the amount of work that's going up relative to the amount of work being performed is not aligned. And then we're just talking about lack of control. There's so many things that could go wrong out in the remote environment, particularly, and I'll just, this is kind of a simple example, but if you carry a laptop every day with you for work, you kind of know where it is every day. If this is all new to you and you're deployed out from your normal work scenario, it just doesn't get any easier. This is all new stuff. So getting all the accessories back when this is over, all kinds of things that, again, just result in really more work for everyone involved.
Right. We've seen a ton of our clients just over provisioning hardware to try to staff or try to outfit their remote workers, and just purchasing like volumes of hardware at a pace that they've never had to before.
Yeah, that's no, you're totally you're spot on there, Tom. I mean, we have one of the things that we're working on with our customers is, and this is actually helping in some ways, is that it's forcing them to take a real look at the provisioning that they're doing, and how many assets they're purchasing, and what we're seeing is that you started to describe there, is that they're buying too many in general, and this adds up to substantial investment every year of assets that don't get deployed.
Yeah.
So there's a ton of opportunity to make overall asset management improvements as things start to come back to.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. I mean, how have your customers reacted to COVID?
Yeah. So in sixth grade, I learned from my teacher that she used to say that hope is not a strategy, and it didn't mean as much to me then as it did as we developed our business and we're constantly thinking about strategy. But it's not a strategy, but it's a human reaction that we all have. I kind of mentioned the other one before, which is okay, we'll work harder, we'll double down, we'll do more, and that's reasonable, except that some of these constraints extend beyond that. A lot of companies have many of their locations with little or no people able to report to them today. And then the common reaction, and this gets a little bit tricky, but common reaction is what we're calling an IT transformation. And by IT transformation, it means we're going to tighten up governance, we're going to tighten up process, we're going to add a check and balance. It's all things that embetter the IT aspect of it, but really it's not a solution in and of itself. So there's ways that you can improve and transform IT to be more capable, but it's really about the whole digital experience, which is, these are common reactions. And then we've seen some really great reactions out of our clients and out of our collective teams, both Tom's team and our team, coming up with solutions for these clients.
Right. Can you talk about that in terms of what's the what's the best reaction or the best response to COVID, in your experience?
Well, in our world, so differentiating that IT transformation of just doing a better job at IT into a digital transformation where we're really thinking about the customer experience. And customer experience go forward is measured a little bit differently as it is measured in the confines of their home, right? So the ability to get their satisfaction level with IT is going to be relative to the ability to get the hardware and stuff that they need. And also, I'm pretty sure that everyone's already got a closet full of computers that have pictures they're never going to look at again. They don't want to shove one of the companies in that closet too. So there's got to be some solution there. So what we're talking about is an experience that delivers assets where they're needed, when they're needed, that includes an integration that allows the request for assets or the request for actions to happen seamlessly or virtually the way it happens today, but that the supply chain is able to respond to those needs. That's what we're looking for. And I tell this story a lot, and I say there's some point, I don't remember the exact moment, where I became too lazy to type my address in because it was already saved in Amazon. So if I could purchase something there, I'd do that any day. And that's just one of many customer experiences that we have in all throughout our lives today that we think is part of a digital transformation that needs to happen to the clients that we serve. And it's really focused on that customer experience. How close to just having a Prime button can we get? And in order to do that, we think that requires you to rethink operations. And
so what do you mean by that?
Well, what I mean by that is stop thinking about it. And without a better way of saying this, we're probably a little better at it than you do because it's all we think about and all we do. And so it's not a simple decision to just say, yeah, outsource it all. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm just talking about rethinking the value that you're looking to get out of IT and out of your digital systems. And you will find, many will find that there's a lot of efforts going in there that don't need to be. And my favorite example of that, to put more context to it, is there's not one IT guy that's about to get his degree in computer science that says, I can't wait to get a nice box cutter so I can get rid of all of those boxes of computers when the new ones come in. That's not what they're motivated by. That's not what they're looking for, but it is where they spend a substantial amount of their time. And we're asking, in order to really make the types of transformation that is really demanded of today, the CIOs today, that's a big part of it. And then that third piece is to align the service and technology. And I think that when this partnership was formed, our services with that technology, which aligns with ServiceNow, would have such meaningful timing, in that we blended those things together in a way that does get that customer experience as close to just hitting a Prime button as possible. Implementation of that is not maybe what it seems, and it's not something that has to wait until COVID is quote unquote done in order to implement.
Right. Yeah, I've been kind of pushing this for a while that, as a software company, we are a technology solution to the hardware asset management problem. But, what I've really found interesting is customers don't really want my technology. They don't need technology. They need a solution to the problem. And the response that we've gotten from people that are looking to outsource their depot operation, outsource their hardware asset management operation, but maintain control, within their asset repository, their ServiceNow repository, or otherwise, just really seem to lighten the burden and allows them to focus on just much more important aspects of their business. So,
yeah, that's a great point, Tom. I have this. What popped into my head is this story I had. good friend of mine who's a master carpenter came to help me put together a workbench not too long ago, and I'm certainly not nearly as good as he is at any of this crafty stuff. And as you can imagine, we're screwing together a workbench, and I spent most of my time looking for my drill or looking for the screw that I just had, which was sometimes in my mouth, sometimes in my ear, and sometimes 16 feet across the floor. And he had everything in place, right? So what it makes me think of is it didn't matter if I had the fanciest drill, it didn't matter if I had the fanciest hammer. But the tie-in there is, the tool and the service, right? So there's a person who is able to utilize that tool to the best of its ability, is much more effective. And so that's, just, it relates to our partnership in that we've spent 20 years refining the process around asset management lifecycle. Tom, you've spent 20 years perfecting that tool and making it work well with the other service management tools and such that are out there. And so we think that our collective solution makes for a nice step towards digital transformation.
Yeah. So then lastly, this pandemic, it's kind of shaken everything up, and it's a leading question here, but obviously we see this as an opportunity to make changes that companies can benefit from. Can you talk to me a little bit about that? Like how, why is now a perfect opportunity to implement some change or to rethink your operations?
Yeah, I mean, the don't react, respond. I mean, we try to think that way all the time. It's interesting, if I just look at my own personal experiences with coronavirus, right? My first thing was react and go, my gosh, this is, from a business standpoint, what a nightmare. I don't know how are we going to navigate through this? But really, the response was all about, boy, what's the future hold, and how can we enhance what it is our clients are trying to accomplish? So we're recommending same thing. Don't react. You're going to have a lost asset. Something is going to happen, but think more all inclusive. There's some great advice out there. I can't quote who this came from, but it's kind of paraphrased here. Don't fix something you shouldn't be doing in the first place. And that relates back to, like I said, we've got experience in this, and no person in IT is think about, do you need a warehouse at all? Do you need to decommission? Should you be running a warehouse? If you're a bank, if you're an insurance company, are you also really good at warehousing? So again, that goes back, it relates closely to rethink how you're doing it. But really, this last thing is the biggest piece of it, is what is the pandemic change or opportunity for your IT organization or for your company? So, we're looking at it as our opportunity is to free up your time, and what you do with that is, could be monumental. And by not reacting and responding, and instead responding, we can see that we can take some relief off the staff, improve the overall metrics, really get the system simplified and easy and fun to use, and you can really focus on what you do best as a company.
Yeah, what I think is most exciting is just the pandemic has come and blown up everything, like all the processes and the tools and processes in place for hardware asset management are just blown apart. It's like my kid, he builds Legos and we tear them all apart, and then you can build something new. These like 3-in-1 tools that he loves, and like the pandemic has just created, taken all these processes and blown them up. You've got to rebuild and retool things. How can you take this as an opportunity to build the future, build an operation that kind of gets you out of the complexity of hardware asset management? And I think for, hardware asset management has taken, it's not always been the front runner in terms of people's mind. And asset management software has always been a major focus, and you know, in terms of the amount of money spent trying to solve that problem, the complexity around it. Now all of a sudden hardware is front and center because of, you know, people physically having to leave the office. So you've got the attention, you've got you've got your executives' attention, you've got a huge problem that's kind of front and center. This pandemic has created an opportunity where you can have the support to build the solution that um, you know, is gonna last. So it's I'm with you. Like, you know, when this thing happened, I went out and, you know, filled up all my cars with gas and started thinking about, you know, burying food in the backyard, you know, for the apocalypse. And now that things have kind of settled out, um, you start thinking about the future, and I do see a lot of opportunity for our customers, and I'm pretty proud of some of the work that are some of the things that our customers have achieved by really rethinking that their operation there. And when we say like leveraging technology and service together, you know, implementing things like um, end user self-certification tools to get, you know, end users to report their own inventory and to certify things in a streamlined way, and to outsource depot services so that, you know, companies can get equipment delivered directly to people's homes, and to give easy ways for customers to those end customers to return that equipment to centralized depots without like driving all this complexity. Um, uh, we're seeing some companies take some really forward-looking steps towards improving operations, and we think it's an opportunity for everybody to do the same.
Yeah, you know, Tom, that actually reminded me. We had one really cool experience right at the onset when things, like you said, when things just got hairy. We had one of our clients that's a full scope asset management. We do all of the delivery, all of the imaging, loading, deploying, redeploys, IMAC, and disposal for this company. And they're, as you know, Tom, they're integrated with Asset Track. And so it was interesting because, as I mentioned earlier, you know, a lot of our customers are calling, hey, do you have 500 or 1,000 laptops, or where can I find them, or can I redeploy? And one of the phone calls that we got was, hey, you guys are going to be able to deliver this refresh a few weeks late. Is that correct? And we said, yeah, we think so. Is it still coming? Yeah, the product's coming. And here's an upload of user addresses, home addresses, of where they need to go. So we took, and we actually broke a record for this client in deploying 1,500 assets in under a month. But what was really exciting about that was we did it, most of that was to the users' individual addresses, and to recover 100% of the assets that got retired was also, you know, an exciting outcome of that. And I'm sharing it just because they were prepared. They're thinking very heavily about what their overall digital transformation needs are. And so, you know, they've had a program like this for several years now. And that's the kind of leverage that we're, you know, if you take one thing away, that's the kind of leverage we're trying to get for our clients, is the ability to respond and versus react.
That's cool. That's cool. Yeah, and after the pandemic is over, there's probably no going back to the way things were with them. That's a perfect example of taking this as an opportunity to transform their operations in a way that's going to be lasting. So super.
Well, yeah, right. And it's, you know, the easiest time to do an inventory is when there's not much inventory. So is we can get organization and validation around what's there today before all of this stuff, you know, comes back, let's call it. It's a super opportune time to instigate this type of change.
Yeah, excellent. Well, hey, thank you very much, Mike. I appreciate it. You know, it's some interesting stories, and you know, we're looking forward to continuing to work together. And for any more information, you can come to our website here, and the Asset Track solution is the technology that AMI creates. Asset Track Pro is the combined technology and service solution powered by Mike and resource partners. But you can find information about it here if you have any additional questions. But I want to thank you for your time, Mike. Good luck. And we will see it here online again soon.
You got it, Tom. Yeah, we appreciate it, and we appreciate the partnership. I was told by the operations staff to remind you that we still think Asset Track is the best thing we've ever done. So pass that along to your team. But thanks for including us.
All right. Thank you very much. Take care. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.